天子下，分你一坛。
In order to defend himself, if old Fuddy-Duddy and Lil Fuddy-Duddy came to drag him out of his bed in the middle of the night, Wei Wuxian slept while clinging on to his sword. Yet, the night went smoothly. On the second day, Nia Huaisang came to him with an overjoyed expression. Wei Xiong, you really struck it lucky. The old man went to our sect's discussion conference last night, so we don't have classes for a few days. Now that the old one is gone, the young one can be easily taken care of. Wei Wuxian quickly climbed up, beaming as he put on his boots. A lucky strike, indeed, almost as if heaven is blessing me with its clouds. Close quote. Jiang Cheng stood on the side, carefully cleaning his sword, and threw cold water on this notion. When he comes back, you are still gonna get your punishment. Close quote. Wei Wuxian responded, why would a living person worry about what happens after they die? I just live freely, as long as possible. Let's go. I refuse to believe that I can't find any pheasants on this mountain of the Lan sect. Close quote. The three walked together, passing through the reception room of the cloud recesses. Suddenly, Wei Wuxian stopped in his tracks and exclaimed, there are two Lil Fuddy, Lan Zhan's. A few people walked out of the room. Of the two youths at the front, both looked as if they were carved out of ice and jade, both wore the same snow-white robes, and both had sword tassels which swayed in the breeze, alongside ribbons on their clothes. The only differences were their ambiances and facial expressions. Wei Wuxian could tell at once that, if the one with the stern face was Lan Wangji, the gentle one must be the other jade of the Lan sect, Zhou Jun, Lan Zijian. As Lan Wangji saw Wei Wuxian, he scrunched his brows, giving him a glare in an almost glowering fashion. As if he would be tainted, if he looked a moment longer, he moved his gaze away, and stared into the distance. On the other hand, Lan Zijian smiled, and you are, Close quote. Jiang Cheng showed his respect with a salute, Jiang Wanyan of Yanming. Close quote. Wei Wuxian followed, Wei Wuxian of Yanming. Close quote. Lan Zijian returned the salute. Nia Huaisang whispered in the volume of a gnat, brother Zijian. Close quote. Lan Zijian turned to him, Huaisang, a while ago, as I returned from King, your brother asked of your studies. How is it? This year, will you be able to pass? Close quote. Nia Huaisang replied, generally speaking, yes. He seemed like a wilted cucumber, looking at Wei Wuxian in a helpless way. Wei Wuxian grinned, Zhou Jun, what are you two going out for? Close quote. Lan Zijian, to exterminate a water ghoul. We were short of hands, so I came back, to find Wangji. Close quote. Lan Wangji spoke coldly, brother, we do not need to engage in small talk. This matter permits no delay. It is time for us to depart. Close quote. Wei Wuxian hurried, wait. I know how to catch water ghouls. Zhou Jun, why don't you take us along? Close quote. Lan Zijian smiled without words. Lan Wangji declared, it is against the rules. Close quote. Wei Wuxian, how is it against the rules? We used to catch water ghouls all the time in Yanming. Besides, we don't have classes these days anyways. Close quote. Yanming was abundant in lakes and water, so it teemed with water ghouls. It was true that people of the Jiang sect were adept at this, and Jiang Cheng also wanted to make up for the face which the Yanming Jiang sect lost during this stay at the Lan sect. That's right. Zhou Jun, we definitely be of help. Close quote. It is not necessary. The Guzu Lan sect is also. Before Lan Wangji finished talking, Lan Zijian spoke while smiling, sure then. Many thanks for your help. Do some preparations, and we can depart together. Huaisang, are you coming as well? Na Huaisang also wanted to join in, but he had been reminded of his older brother as he met Lan Zijian. Cringing silently, he didn't dare to have fun. "I'll pass and go back, so that I can review." With this act, he hoped that Lan Zijian would put in some good words for him to his brother. Wei Wuxian and Chiang Cheng went back to their rooms to prepare. Lan Wangji looked at them from behind, his brows knitted with confusion. "Brother, why did you decide to bring them? Exterminating ghouls is not suited for joking around." Lan Zijian answered, "The head disciple and only son of sect leader Chiang are quite well known in Yanming. It is likely that they know more than joking around." Although Lan Wangji didn't express his opinion, the phrase "I beg to differ" was written all over his face. Lan Zijian spoke again, "And, also, you wish for him to go as well, do you not?" Lan Wangji was stunned. "Lan Zijian, I only agreed because you looked as if you wanted the head disciple of sect leader Chiang to come with you." A silence fell upon them, as if the air was frozen solid. Only after a while did Lan Wangji finally respond, speaking with great difficulty, "There was no such thing." He wanted to defend himself further, but Wei Wuxian and Chiang Cheng already grabbed their swords and headed over, so Lan Wangji had to shut his mouth. The group mounted their SWORDS-1 and set off. The place where the water ghouls haunted was named Kai Town, about 10 kilometers away from the cloud recesses. Kai Town was connected with paths of water. It was either a net of rivers densely covering the town, or dwellings packed on either sides of the web-like water paths. The houses had white walls and grey roofs, and the rivers were filled with boats of baskets and people. On the banks, they sold flowers, fruits, bamboo crafts, pastries, tea, and silk. Gusu was in the Jiangmen area, and all the voices one could hear were soft and gentle. As two boats crashed into each other, and a few jars of rice wine were spilled, even the arguments of the two boatmen sounded like chirps of the oriole. Although Yanming had many lakes, there weren't a lot of small towns with so much water. Wei Wuxian found it quite interesting. He bought 2 jars of rice wine, and gave one to Chiang Cheng. Gusu people talk in such a sugary way. How is this arguing? If they see how Yanming people argue, they might be scared to death. Why are you looking at me, Lan Shan? It's not that I'm too stingy to buy you any. Aren't people from your sect prohibited from drinking alcohol? Having only stayed for a short time, the group boarded 10 or so narrowboats, and rowed toward where the water ghouls gathered. Gradually, the number of houses on the banks decreased, and the river path became quieter as well. Wei Wuxian and Chiang Cheng each had a boat, competing who could row faster, while listening to events in the area that concerned water ghouls. This water path led to a large lake ahead of them, named Biling Lake. Kai Town hadn't been haunted by water ghouls ever since tens of years ago, yet, for the past few months, people had started to fall into this path and Biling Lake. Boats which carried goods also sunk without any reasons. A few days ago, Lan Zijian casted a few nets over this area. He expected to catch 1 or 2 water ghouls, but got about a dozen instead. He cleaned the corpses, and carried them to a nearby part of the town, only to find that some corpses were not familiar to any of the local people, and remained unclaimed. Yesterday, he set up the net formation again, and caught quite a few again. Wei Wuxian spoke, "It doesn't seem like that the corpses drowned somewhere else, and floated here either. Water ghouls are picky about their area. Most of the time, the only place they settle on is the place they drowned at, and they usually don't leave there." Lan Zijian nodded, "That is correct. This was why I thought that it was no trivial matter, and asked Wangji to come along, in case something happens." close quote. Wei Wuxian asked, Zhou Jun, water ghouls are really clever. If we use the boats and take our time like this, isn't it possible that they'll hide underwater and not come out? Won't we have to keep on searching forever? What if we can't find them? Lan Wangji replied, we will wait until we find them. After all, we do what we must. Close quote. Wei Wuxian, just by using nets question mark close quote. Lan Zijian, that is right. Does the Yanmingjiang sect have other methods? Wei Wuxian smiled but didn't respond. Of course, the Yanmingjiang sect used nets as well. But, because he was a good swimmer, he had always jumped into the river and dragged water ghouls out. However, this method was too dangerous. He definitely could do it in front of the Lan sect's people. If it traveled into Lan Qiren's ears, he would definitely face another lecture. He switched the topic. It'd be great if there's something that can attract the water ghouls like a fishing bait. Or something that can point out their directions, like a compass. Close quote. Jiang Cheng spoke, look down at the water and concentrate on finding them. You are letting your imagination run again. Close quote. Wei Wuxian, cultivation and riding on swords also used to be just imagination. As he looked down, he happened to be able to see the bottom of the boat which Lan Wangji was on. An idea flashed across his head, and he shouted, Lan Zhan, look at me! Exclamation point. Close quote. At the moment, Lan Wangji was keeping a sharp lookout. As he heard the words, he looked up, only to see Wei Wuxian's bamboo paddle sweep up a splash of water, and strike it toward him. With a tap of his foot, Lan Wangji lightly hopped onto another boat, dodging the spray. He was quite angered, thinking to himself that, sure enough, Wei Wuxian was here to fool around, pathetic. However, Wei Wuxian kicked the side of the boat which he was standing on, and tipped it over using the bamboo paddle. On the bottom of the boat, there were 3 water ghouls with swelling faces and a shen skin, tightly clinging onto the wooden boards. A disciple who stood nearby immediately suppressed the 3. Lan Zijian smiled, young Master Wei, how did you know that they were below the boats? Wei Wuxian knocked on the side of the boat, simple. The displacement of water was wrong. He was the only person who stood on the boat, yet the displacement was greater than those of boats that carried 2 people. There must have been something on the bottom. Close quote. Lan Zijian praised him, you are experienced indeed. Close quote. Wei Wuxian's paddle lightly glided through the water, and the boat's speed quickened, so that he was right next to Lan Wangji's boat. He spoke, Lan Zhan, I didn't splash water on you on purpose. Water ghouls are really clever. If I said it out loud, they would have heard it and got away. Hey, don't ignore me. Why don't you look at me, second young Master Lan question mark close quote. Lan Wangji finally condescended, and gave him a glance, why did you come? Wei Wuxian spoke with sincerity, I'm here to apologize to you. Last night was my fault. I was wrong. Close quote. Lan Wangji's countenance was slightly dark, most likely because he still didn't forget how Wei Wuxian apologized to him. Wei Wuxian asked, although he knew the answer, why do you look so gloomy? Don't worry. Today, I'm really here to help. Close quote. Jiang Cheng couldn't watch the scene any longer. If you want to help, then stop chattering and come here. A disciple shouted, the net moved! Exclamation point close quote. Sure enough, the ropes of the net started to wobble. Wei Wuxian beamed, it's here! Exclamation point close quote. Thick, long hair formed bales of black satin, surging and swelling around the boats. Amid them, pairs of ghastly hands gripped onto the sides. Lan Wangji backhandedly drew his sword, bitchin', and severed 10 or so wrists on the left of the boat, leaving only palms with fingers digging deep into the wood. As he was about to cut the ones on the right, a red light flashed past, and Wei Wuxian's sword was already back in its sheath. The strange shifts of the water had ceased, and the net also became still once more. Although, a few moments ago, Wei Wuxian's sword attacked at an extremely fast speed, Lan Wangji could already tell that the sword he carried was of very high quality. He asked with a serious face, "What is the name of this sword?" Wei Wuxian answered, "Suibian-2. Lan Wangji stared at him. Wei Wuxian thought that he didn't hear properly, so he repeated it again, "Suibian." Lan Wangji frowned and refused. "This sword has a spirit. Calling it as one pleases is disrespectful." Wei Wuxian let out a sigh. "Think outside the box, won't you? I wasn't asking you to call it whatever you wanted to, but the name of my sword just happens to be Suibian. Here, look." As he spoke, he passed the sword over for Lan Wangji to see the characters on the sword. Surrounded by lines and patterns, 2 ancient characters were carved onto the sheath. It was Suibian, indeed. For a few moments, Lan Wangji was at a loss for words. Wei Wuxian showed his consideration. "You don't need to talk. I know that you definitely want to ask me why it's called this name. Everyone asks if it has some special meaning to it. Actually, there's no special meaning at all. It was just that, when Uncle Jiang gave me the sword and asked me what I wanted to call it, I came up with more than 20 names, but wasn't satisfied with any of them. I thought that I could let Uncle Jiang give it a name, so I answered, whatever. But, who knew that, after the sword had been forged and taken out, these 2 characters were on it?" Uncle Jiang said, "If this is the case, then why not let this sword be named Suibian? To be honest, this name isn't bad either, right?" Finally, Lan Wangji spoke through his gritted teeth. "Ridiculous!" Wei Wuxian carried his sword on his shoulder. "You're such a boring person. Don't you see how fun this name is?